Welcome to Shawn and Carter Have a Podcast. My name is Shawn.
And I'm Carter.
And this week we hope that we get, a 2-hour response after a 3-hour podcast. That's what we're going for, right, Carter?
That's what we're always going for. We've just never quite made it.
We're going for the Titanic of podcasts.
You know, there must be, if there's not, maybe we can just do this. There must be a Guinness Book World Record for the longest podcast ever recorded, right?
Yeah. I saw the record for the longest film in existence, and it's this really weird record because, you'd think of something like Gone with the Wind or, some epic that's like...
Lawrence of Arabia.
Exactly, like a 4-hour movie or something. The longest film ever made is actually, 2.5 days long.
What?
It is 2.5 days long, and it's basically just the daily activities of this guy, including his sleeping. But it is, in fact, it holds the record as the world's longest film. It's really weird.
I call BS on that.
Yeah, every time you look up the Guinness records, it's like you have this one outstanding record that just is weird. That's the record? How does that count?
There is a record that some of the staff on my team wants to do that we think is not in the Guinness Book right now, and that
world's
is
largest office pillow fight.
No, it is similar. It's both the longest amount of time and the most ball tosses between two people tossing a ball between each other.
Okay.
We have two staffers who kind of like to toss a ball back and forth when
you
they're
have
talking.
two good ball tossers.
Yeah, and they're like, I wonder if there's a Guinness record for either. They said the longest time, but me being a data dork, I'm like, well, you could also do the number.
Carter
of
opens up his
and,
spreadsheets and he's running the data.
I'm like, well, amount of time is a good one, but you could also do ball tosses because if you toss very quickly, and not drop it, then you can have two records and try and preserve both of them. It seems like from the casual research that we've done, that this is not a Guinness Book World Record. So if anyone knows or they want to help me, is this a Guinness World Record? Because if it's not, then you could toss a ball 3 times and you won the record, and then someone else will try and yay, we did it. They would not. They were talking about doing a serious 8-hour ball tossing session.
They have to have people feed them food and put a straw with water in their mouths.
I don't think they thought it through.
Mop the sweat from their brow.
Yeah, it's sort of like being a surgeon.
Just like it.
Yeah, I don't know how they would do that. Maybe I don't know.
But anyway, thank you to Elaine and Ron for their hour-long response, which I'm saying it like it was a long time, but we both listened to the whole thing. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, really, guys, thank you. We really appreciate the both the length of your response and the thoughtfulness and the care that you put into your response.
It's very entertaining.
Appreciate that we have such dedicated listeners.
And I got most of our response to it out of the way because there were a couple things that I knew we would want to address, but I did leave some stuff for us.
I love that you thought Ultraviolet was Aeon Flux, because I thought the same thing.
They came out so close together, and their style is so similar. And I did mix up whose movie it was. It was Ron's movie, not Elaine's. But it didn't matter because my failing just demonstrated how bad these movies were because I couldn't even remember which one was which.
Oh, I have not seen either of them, but I'll take everyone's word for their word.
I hardly remember Aeon Flux. All I really remember is that she doesn't die, and that was the whole crux of the show on MTV, that at the end of each 2-minute episode or whatever, she would die. She would fall and die. That was what happened. And she didn't... the movie was nothing like that.
Kind of reminds me of the premise for Dollhouse. A little bit.
Ooh, another Joss Whedon goodie.
Did I ever... I had a girlfriend for a month in college who made me watch some Dollhouse, and I kind of really didn't like it.
I wanted to bring that up when we get to a question later in the podcast related to science fiction shows.
Yeah, I Granted, this was a long time ago before I knew anything about Joss Whedon, and I was I felt like I was getting dragged into watching the show by someone, but I sort of was like, do we really have to watch this? Can we just watch like Top Chef or something else that you like?
I've experienced every Joss Whedon TV show project, even if I haven't watched every episode of each one, and I will say that Dollhouse is the one that I was the least interested in.
More on the response that we had, the very awesome response from Ron and Elaine. I watched Shawn's vlog, his 149th vlog, if I can point that out, on a bullet train to 150. My friend.
Milestones.
And also, can I say that, like, maybe not a year ago, but like a long time ago, if you had said Shawn would have more vlogs than me, I would have laughed in your face. But he has well surpassed the amount of vlogs I ever recorded. So congratulations.
I started recording vlogs in your style about the time that you stopped.
Yeah. So
I kind of took it over.
Yeah, you've taken the baton.
I liked what you were doing there. I wanted to see it continued.
I like what you're doing. I appreciate your. I appreciate.
No, I insist. After you.
No, of course. Obviously, like, Shawn noticed this immediately. I wonder if Ron and Elaine had the same. I don't think they mentioned it in the podcast, but when Ron asked, like, I wonder how elevators work, doesn't that just, like, in everyone's minds, like, a little thing pops up, like, Carter probably is going to look into this and have something to say.
And boy, did you.
I do. Okay, so Ron, this is not a random question. This is not Captain Science time. This is just me talking about elevators for
You have a special hat for Captain Science time later.
Yeah, exactly. Ron's specific question was, you get into an elevator, you put, several people get on, you push a bunch of buttons for different floors.
Like Will Ferrell and Elf.
I've never seen.
What?
I've never seen.
You've never seen Elf?
No.
Huh. That's disappointing.
I'll see it right after this, I promise.
It might be kind of weird as we're approaching April right now, but okay. Anyway, elevator buttons.
Ron wanted to know, I didn't realize this was going to spawn such incredulity. Ron wanted to know, like, how do they decide where to go? How do they decide what order to do the floors in? And
well, Ron, obviously there's a little dwarf inside the panel. He's got a little pedal with a electric generator.
The history of elevators does involve like an actual person, but
not a dwarf.
Not a dwarf. So this is actually a classic question for computer science, and that's one of the reasons why I really, really wanted to bring it up, is that the algorithm that I'm going to describe, how a basic elevator works, is really, really simple to program in, basic programming language. Like, if you have any understanding of how, like, Python works, and you can, like, write a function, you could write a very simple function that is the elevator algorithm, and you could pass it an array of numbers that would simulate an elevator, basically, going to different floors. This is a really, really great question, and it is a really great way to understand how algorithms work. So,
our audience attention is peaked right now.
I'm sure. The Yellow Llama, maybe. I know that he is interested in these topics. This is just for him. So the elevator algorithm is actually painfully simple. I know most of the time when I'm talking about these things, I always say, like, well, it's complicated. This is not complicated. It's super simple. And if you are very perceptive in watching how elevators work, you probably, if you're in a building with one elevator, it does get complicated when you have very tall buildings with many elevators. You probably noticed this. So the basic algorithm that all elevators start from is move in the direction of your requests and stop at each of them. And when you get to the last request in that direction, check to see if there are requests in the opposite direction. If there are, go back to the top and move in that direction and do the same thing. And if there are not, idle at the floor that you stopped at. So if you get into an elevator on like the second floor and people pushed 3, 5, and 1, it will follow that algorithm. It will go to 3. It will check. I've got another one at 5. It will go to 5. Then it will be done with that part of the algorithm, and then it will say, okay, is there anything in the opposite direction? Yes, there is. There's 1. I'm going to move in that direction now. Move to 1, and then it's going to check, is there anything in the opposite direction moving up? No. I will idle at 1. I'll just stay here. And that's how elevators work. I think the thing that Ron and Elaine were getting into is that there are like sort of special things that elevators do. I think they're called like up peak and down peak. So there are times when you're going to want to go up a building more frequently than down, and vice versa. Like if, an office building, you're going to want to go up at the beginning of the day, and you're going to want to go down at the end of the day.
So it has contingencies for like rush hour times.
Exactly, the peak times. So that's just like adding on to the algorithm. It's saying like in the morning, if it's an office building, do everything like you would in the algorithm, except when you're done, send the car to the ground floor. Because people are going to be coming in from the ground, and they're going to want to go up. And at the end of the day, instead of always going to the ground floor, it's going to say something like, go to one of the middle floors, because then you will be statistically likely to be...
you'll be closer
You'll be closer to anything, right? Random person. And then also there's the final thing I wanted to bring up is Sabbath elevators or Sabbath procedures. Do you know about this?
No.
So
it's not related to Ozzy Osbourne?
Not that I know.
Okay.
There are elevators and also traffic patterns in certain cities that are designed to help conservative Jews on Sabbath. They're not allowed to use electronic equipment.
Oh, right. I know this from I know this from The Big Lebowski.
So there are elevators in certain cities or certain buildings that are programmed on Saturdays to stop at every floor and open the doors.
So that you don't have to push anything?
You don't have to push a button. And likewise, there are certain traffic patterns. I know of this mostly in Los Angeles. There certainly may be other cities or areas of cities where this is true, where California, really, there are a lot of municipalities that really enforce the whole you have to push the button to cross the street, and if you don't, they're going to favor the car traffic.
Uh-huh.
On Saturdays, they will always allow people to cross the street without pushing the button for Sabbath.
So religious contingencies built into our daily lives, I guess.
Exactly. Into our algorithms. So
into our daily algorithms.
Into our daily algorithms. So algorithms is a big, messy word. Algorithms are computer science 101, and I will part with this, and maybe I'll write a little Python script and get it to Shawn somehow so that it can get in the show notes for the elevator algorithm. It's really, really, really simple.
We're going to turn YouTube into an elevator.
Yeah. Algorithms and programs, the way that a lot of comp sci 101 people will talk about it is their recipes. Like do this, then do that, whip the eggs until, stiff peaks, etc.
Right.
That's exactly how an elevator works. It's like do this until that, and then if something else, then do that. Otherwise,
I mean, a lot of languages you're even using the same words that you're using in that description. It's like an if then else statement.
Exactly. In Python, in JavaScript, certainly you're using if else. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. The languages that I know, a lot of them don't use then for some reason.
Because you don't need to. It's stated.
Right. Exactly. So, but it's a really simple Python function to write for the elevator algorithm, and I said I was going to wrap up, but I'm now actually wrapping up. The elevator algorithm, the elevator logic is actually used in spinning disk hard drives as or older ones at least, for the method for retrieving data in a sequence. It uses the same logic of go to like the furthest piece of data and then scan backwards to make the head that scans all the data on the disk to make it move more efficiently. So
how bizarre.
Yeah, right? Elevators, they're all over. They're in your computer. Elevator logic everywhere.
This reminded me of two points. There is a button in elevators all over the world that is supposed to close the buttons or close the doors.
Yes.
Close the buttons. And here in America, that button does not do anything. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
That button does not do anything in America because of the passage of the People with Disabilities
ADA.
Yes. Act. That was the word I was looking for. That act made it illegal to make that button work, which is a weird side effect of it.
So that button's just a lie.
It is. It also, you talked about the buttons on traffic control things.
Yes.
In many places, not everywhere in America, but in many places, those buttons have been intentionally disabled for the same reason.
That I did have some knowledge of.
And the other thing that you reminded me of is I've been thinking about SimCity and like everything because I put it on 5 things. Do you remember a game in the 90s called SimTower?
Yes! I do. It was on the Mac in my 5th grade homeroom.
When you were talking about elevators, all of a sudden I was like, holy crap, what was that? Was it Sim Elevator? And I went looking for it and I found it, and it's SimTower. It was released in 1994. It is a game where you build a skyscraper, and so much of it revolves around elevators. That's why I was thinking it might be called Sim Elevator. But it's basically like SimCity, but in just one building.
There's an app that's out on iOS, maybe on Android, that is similar, but it's just trying to get you to spend money.
Oh, of course. It's
like,
called. Is it called Ute Tower? It says it's on the iTunes iOS App Store.
I don't know. I just saw about it. And
it's one of those fascinating strategy games that Maxis released back in the 90s.
You know, I think the games were better back then.
This is one of those games that like you had to think. Like it didn't handhold or anything. You just had to think and apply the knowledge that you got from playing the game.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically of SimCity 2. It was much more advanced than SimCity. Did SimCity come out for the PC? Was it just on consoles?
I believe it even came out on... I was about to say, I know it came out on consoles.
I know it was on a console. I played SimCity on a console. I never played it on a PC.
And I know I played it on a Mac.
Oh, yeah. A lot of those console games came out on Mac back in the day.
It says various personal computers. I don't know what that means.
A lot of those console games came out on a Mac, like, before 1992, 93. It's like they always got released on Mac.
Oh, here's a whole list. It's a whole bizarre... It's got, like, the Amiga. It does say DOS. It does say DOS, so...
Well, okay. I played it on an NES.
But it's even got, like, Game Boy Advance, which didn't even exist until, like, what? Like, almost 2000? Yeah, 2001. So...
I don't know when that came out.
That was 11 years after the game even came out.
Oh, before I finish this point, I figured out the thing that I was trying to think of last week that Ricari was wrong about. Haha, Will, you were wrong.
You tell him.
I was talking about that, like, Newton thing that Apple made, that with, like, green translucent plastic that, like, had a keyboard and like, a screen. I said it, I was listening. I always listen to our podcast, and by the way, listening to our podcast and taking notes on it was tough. So I apologize for everyone. We'll try to make them shorter.
Which is why we're going to rein it in.
I I said something like it had like a TI-89 screen, which, in my defense, was not like the thing that Ricari sent in, but it was also not as big as what I was imagining. What I was trying to say is it had an LED screen. That
Oh,
it was just
okay.
like black and white. Okay. And I said, I think that they're called something like an eMac, but I know that that's not right. I was close. It's an eMate. They were an eMate, and I called the date because of my uncompromising knowledge of the Apple product line. It did come out around 1997, and they were basically a Newton that had a keyboard for the education market, and they were crap. And actually, I went on eBay. You can still buy these things for not a lot of money if you want to go out and see what one of these things, how one of these things work. Shawn, do you remember the old iBooks that were really fruity colored looking?
Oh, yeah.
They reused a lot of the design language from the eMate in the iBook, the original iBook.
Okay.
So there you go. The final thing that I want to talk about SimCity was that SimCity 2 and I think SimCity 3 involved so much, like, they didn't help you at all, like what you're saying about SimTower. They just said, like, here are all the elements of the city. You have to have residential areas, commercial areas, you have to have power, you have to have water, and then here's a blank area, and you need to build your city as best as you can, and we will not help you. And I just thought that was so much more interesting than the way that games nowadays kind of like handhold you in a lot of ways.
It's a game that's so built around numbers that, like, you kind of, like, you watch the things that you're having an effect on, and then you try something else. If the numbers aren't turning out the way that you want them to, you're like, oh, the crime is awful. I need to put more money in the police department. And then you try that and see if that works. Or maybe you need to, like, upgrade this neighborhood because it's turned into a slum. It's really incredibly awesome statistics at work.
It's kind of like playing StarCraft 2 against yourself.
Yeah, and this game, they are adding multiplayer elements. They've said that they had a multiplayer match where one guy's crime spread into another guy's city, and like he had to try and combat it because I guess his town was selling drugs to another town or something.
Well, I guess it will be a race to see whether Shawn and I do the new SimCity co-op or Terraria.
Yeah, SimCity's a far way off, so that'll be a wait.
All right. The last bit of follow-up that I had is about Google Play, and you mentioned this as well.
Yes, I pointed out that I felt like Google Play is not really new at all. It's just an evolution of what was already called Google Music, and now it has a marketplace.
Yeah, and I think that you're totally right to criticize it, because if you go to any Google product, it has a big red new with an exclamation point next
I'm staring at it right now.
So they're calling it new. It's not new.
It's not new. It's newly renamed.
It is the newly renamed service, Google Play. And this kind of gets into something that Elaine was talking about when she was on the podcast. We got to get more people on the podcast, Shawn.
Yeah, we should do that. We that would also keep us at under 2 hours.
Oh, definitely. Because then we just feed into each other. This feeds into what she was talking about, like getting whatever you want onto your product. Like, one of the reasons why I really like having an iOS device is I have really fairly simple mechanisms for getting anything I want onto my device. And if you have an Android device, it's more complicated. You have to figure it out. And I think that Google Play is, Google tried this thing with music. It worked really well to get music onto devices. And now they want to kind of brand it. And it's like, this is the way that you get things onto your Google Android phone or tablet. They don't really have tablets. Regardless of the fact that they've been really trying to have tablets.
Oh, they're trying.
They're trying hard. They don't have them. So it's like people have said, oh, is Google Play like iTunes for Android? I would say no. And it's not the reason why that a lot of people have been talking about. The reason why I think Google Play is not iTunes for Android and actually sucks, sorry everyone, is that you can't get everything in Google Play on all Android devices. And there's a very obvious reason for that. Not all Android devices have the most current version of Android. The entire Android ecosystem is fragmented all to hell. There are phones that are being sold today that are still running versions of Android 2. There are many phones, most of them I think, running Android 3, and some phones that are running Android 4. And all of them have different dot versions of them. 2.2, 2.3, 3.1, 3.2, and they all have different screen sizes and resolutions. So you go to Google Play from a computer and it lists everything that you could possibly download. And then you go on one of your Android devices, and I'm not sure if it lists everything, but you can't get everything. That sucks.
So the good thing about Android is that you can it's open and you can put it on so many different devices with so many different features and hardware sets and resolutions and everything. But the bad thing is you can put it on so many different devices with different hardware sets and resolutions and everything. It's like it's a double-edged sword.
Right. And not everyone updates their devices as frequently as you'd want.
Yeah, and it's not like it's up to the user, it's up to the company who owns the hardware.
Right. So I know it's a pain, and with over-the-air updates, it's been less of a pain with iOS. You don't have to go to iTunes anymore. But when Apple, for security, I think this is huge. When Apple has an update, they push an update, and it goes to every single one of their devices. If there's an Android security update, and it needs to go to a phone with Moto Blur on it, Motorola has to like take it and be like, okay, how are we going to integrate this into our custom skin of Android? And it's going to take more time. And it's like, well, maybe they're like, yeah, we don't want to push that. We'll just wait. So that is why I think Google Play is nonsense. And I think that the fact that, oh, also, if you go to the Google Play page, have you gone there and looked at it?
Yes, I have.
There's like 6 different fonts that they use on that page. It's a nightmare. The design on that page is awful.
Actually, what I found, the first thing that struck me about it is how much it feels like the Zune marketplace. Because I look at the Zune marketplace all the time because of my Xbox. Whenever I turn it on, it's there. It has a very similar feel.
They have little brightly Google colored. I'm complaining about that for the sake of complaining. I know that's part of their brand. They have very bright primary color boxes for different things along the right-hand side. And when you scroll over them, they get bigger and pop out and get bolder. And just like, it is so ugly and so clunky. And it's just like, why is the font of those different from the font of Google, different from the font of the page above it and below it? It's just like, it is a bewildering set of design choices to me.
I think it's also running an uphill battle against the iTunes store because it's like you've bought your bookcase and you've filled it up with all your favorite movies and books and everything, and then someone's like, hey, look at this empty bookcase over here with all these things you could fill it in. You're like, but I got my bookcase already. It's got all my stuff in it already. Why am I going to go use that bookcase?
That's true. There's nothing tempting for an iOS user about Google Play.
They're only looking for new signups. I mean, you're not going to switch anyone with this.
When you're thinking about the long game, Apple totally beat everyone because they rolled out iTunes and gathered a ton of credit card numbers a long time ago just for music. And then they parlayed that
despite risking that lawsuit with Apple Core, which went on for years.
Sure. Basically every one of their products has been trademarked by another company, and they just were like, nope, we're going to call an iPhone. And Cisco had an iPhone or something, and they're like, hey, we have this thing. And Apple's like, yeah, no, we're going to call it an iPhone. Apple, that's one of the corporate douchebaggery.
I was just going to say, oh, so they're a-holes.
Yeah. Nevertheless, they were way out ahead of everyone on everyone except Amazon, which is why Amazon is always my dark horse. Whatever company has a ton of credit cards and a really easy way of like doing payment processing, that's the company to be looking at. Right. Google is not it. They tried it with Google Wallet. It's not working. I think that they're going to try and push Google Play and get people to plug credit cards into it. I bet it's not going to work very successfully. if Amazon really wanted to, I don't think they do, but if they really, really wanted to make a play, they could, because they can put the fire out or they can put something out and get people to pay for things really easily because they already have your credit card number and your identity.
Yeah, whenever I'm going shopping for something on the internet, I never go anywhere first except Amazon. I mean, I never even think of going anywhere else.
It's kind of interesting. Two of the very biggest players in this area are Amazon, or let's just say all of them: Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and Google. And most of them have been around, except for Google, since the beginning of the web.
Yeah.
It's not what you would expect. People always expect, like, oh, it's going to be this big startup or whatever. And startups never work. Startups always get bought by a bigger, more well-established company.
It's going to be like New York, where they're in 60 years we're going to have these companies that have just been around forever, and they'll, like, under their branding they'll have, like, established 1993, and that will sound like a really old date.
Right. I mean, if you think about it, Amazon's been around for almost 20 years.
Yeah, I think it is in
That's
1993. 93 or 94.
I think it's 94, but it could be 93. That's actually kind of a long time. In web terms, the web has only been around since 1992? World Wide Web?
The consumer accessible web, yeah.
Yeah, so long story short, Google Play is probably not going to work.
Too little, too late.
God bless them, but they're just failing here. And I think they made a huge strategic error in pushing Android in the way that they're doing. I think that if they had a collaboration with Apple, they probably could have done better.
A collaboration with Apple.
I think there was a report out recently. I'll try and get it to Shawn. I think that in terms of revenue, the Google licenses and Google products that Apple uses in iOS devices accounts for more revenue for Google, the company Google, than Android.
Yeah.
At all. And actually, maybe like even significantly more. All right, well, it's Captain Science time.
You're putting on your hat now, your professor hat.
My hat. You called me Captain Science.
I know I did.
We'll have words about that afterwards. I don't like that.
All right, Captain Science.
Shut up.
So Ron's kid wants to know:
does having wet hair, or just being wet and cold in cold weather, does it cause the cold?
I remember when I went over to my grandma's house, like one time, I walked through the rain and she was like, "You got to get your wet socks off because you're gonna get sick.
You'll catch your death."
I wish she'd said that, but I don't think she did. She doesn't talk like that.
There's a New York Times article from 2003 that I'll send to Shawn. This is what I'm referencing. The short answer, Matthew, if you're listening, no.
No.
You can be as cold and as wet as you want. You are not more likely to catch the cold because the cold is a virus. And it doesn't matter. It just means the only way that you catch the cold is being in contact.
You have to contact
with someone or something that has the rhinovirus or any of the other related viri, that we call the common cold. But it is a little more complicated, obviously.
I mean, my initial reaction, of course, is that being in that state for any prolonged period of time could weaken your immune system.
There have been some studies that have looked at that. That is a possibility. The bigger global thinking on this is that there's two things going on. One, when it is cold and kind of rainy out, people tend to be inside more with lots of people, which means you're more likely to be exposed to a random person who has a cold virus.
Okay.
Whereas if it's warm and sunny out, you'll be outside and playing and not be in close quarters.
For some of the people listening to the podcast, I'm going to guess that those things are inconsequential.
Star Wars: The Old Republic is the biggest cold generator of all time.
Hey, I'm including myself in that crowd. Don't worry.
Maybe me too. Yeah. I'm what you would call indoorsy.
I'm an indoors cat.
I don't need a cat flap. The other thinking on this is, or another related issue with this is viruses seem to spread seasonally, and there are just a flight of viruses that tend to be more prevalent in the cold weather times.
Right.
And so the combination of you being inside with more people and these viruses being more prevalent in those times means that, yes, you're more likely to get these viruses when it's cold and potentially rain.
It's kind of crazy the way that they come up with like flu vaccines and stuff, because here in America, they would look at the flu virus that impacted Asia in the previous season, because it generally moves across the earth like with the season, which is bizarre.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Also, a lot of these studies can only use the rhinovirus and other like cold viruses, and not influenza. Influenza definitely comes when it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why they can't use influenza to test is because it is such a dangerous virus. People don't realize that the flu is a really, really powerful virus that
kills thousands of people.
I'm always amazed to think about this, but in 1918, after World War I, 18 million people, I think 18 million people in the world died because of an influenza outbreak.
It was something like 6 or 8% of the world's population. It might have been more than that.
A huge amount of people died from influenza.
I saw it happen in Downton Abbey. That's how I know.
And they also referenced it in the awesome movie Contagion.
Yes, they did.
So,
which has its own influenza outbreak that is terrifying.
Right. So there is one thing that might save the whole don't be cold and wet, and that is some burgeoning research that is not really confirmed about humidity impacting the health of viruses.
Okay.
Humidity might help viruses spread, and that's certain viruses spread. That's not totally confirmed. But so that's the long. We've gone through the long answer that involves Downton Abbey somehow. The short answer is no.
No.
You are fine. You can go out. You can be as cold and as wet as you want. The cold is caused by a virus. It is not caused by the weather.
Saran's next question is not science related. It is.
It is not.
It is daily living, and entertainment related. Have you ever called into a radio show or been on TV?
Well, Shawn, I know that you have something to say about this.
Well, the first time I called into a radio show, very strangely, I called into a local radio show for the very first time because I wanted to request a song, and the guy asked me if he could record me requesting the song. And I was like, wow, cool. And then about a year later, I entered a contest to be a guest DJ on that station, and I was selected. So I got to go DJ with that guy when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15. I remember my dad took me. And then that kind of piqued my interest in the radio. And then in college, I had my own radio show for 3.5 years.
Yeah, if Shawn has not mentioned this, he has had much more experience than I have in the whole talking thing.
Doing radio was what eventually led me to YouTube. I found my identity there, and I found interacting with people that listened to me to be really fun. And I found this very talkative personality that I didn't know that I had until I got to college.
I think radio at its best is one of my most favorite media. I'm thinking specifically of podcasts, but also This American Life.
From WBEZ in Chicago.
Our boss.
As our boss, Tori Malatia.
Tori Malatia.
This American Life is a great show.
It is an amazing show. Love it. I have been on the radio, and I've been on TV. Shawn, you've been on TV. You mentioned that, right?
I've been on a number of when I was like in elementary school. I did a number of local talent shows, and they always broadcast them on local TV. And then when I was like 16 or 17, my uncle named a roller coaster here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. They have an amusement park at Hershey, right outside the chocolate factory. They have an amusement park, and they had a new roller coaster, and he named it, and his prize was that he got to bring his whole family to shoot the commercial. And I got 3 days off of school. We got to hang out in the park in like slightly drizzly, cool weather, which was fine because we were hanging out in an amusement park. And I didn't make it into the commercial, but my cousin did.
You live close to Hershey, Pennsylvania?
I live like less than half an hour from Hershey, Pennsylvania. It's like right down the road.
So before I got my current career, I worked in a law library. Super exciting, I know.
What every 20-year-old wants to do.
One of the largest book binderies for libraries is located in or near Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
In the country. It's huge.
Oh, it is the country. I mean, the reason Milton Hershey moved out there is just because of the farmland.
Yeah.
The town is only there because he built it for his workers. It was basically like Disney.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot about Hershey, Pennsylvania because, like, our senior staff would go to the bookbindery to, like, get tours and updates on, like, new things that they were doing, and then they would visit, like, the Hershey factory, and, like, apparently there's a whole tour. There's a whole tourist industry in Hershey, Pennsylvania that I would never have known about if I had. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's one of those parks that is just spread out throughout the country that unless you're from, like, that state or one of the ones that connects to it, you probably don't know that there's a park there. But everyone knows Hershey.
I would never have known if I had not been involved in bookbinding. They bind good books, by the way. The books that we got were always really well bound.
So when have you been on TV?
Well, I've been on the radio.
You have not been on TV?
Well.
I thought you were on Cops that one time. Are we not supposed to talk about that?
I was not on Cops, but someone that I know was on Cops.
Oh my god.
There. Well, Shawn and I will talk about that offline.
Bad boys.
I can't talk about that on the air.
So what's the next question?
Oh, hey, bath towels. We'll get there. I've been on the radio and I've been on TV. When I was a freshman in high school, I was Bob Cratchit in A Christmas Carol. That is Tiny Tim's dad. In a school production. And we got our local PBS affiliate to record us. It was actually really, really fun. We recorded our performance of Christmas Carol, and it aired on Christmas Day on W something. I'll have to ask my mom. I don't know what our PBS affiliate is.
Our local is WITF.
God, I want to say W... I just want to say WPBS, but I know that's not right.
WPBS. WNPR.
Whatever. WNPR. Whatever the PBS affiliates is in Columbus, we performed A Christmas Carol, and it aired on Christmas Day. So I was on the radio.
That's great.
It was fun. And I've been on TV twice. They were both local affiliates. I've never been on national anything. We did like some Rudy Tooty We Love America thing when I was in 5th grade, and I was Abraham Lincoln, and they like talked to some of the 5th graders about like being happy about the show in America, and I was on that. I don't even remember what I said.
They asked you how it felt getting shot in the head.
Yeah, exactly. Incidentally, in my book queue is Abraham Lincoln Zombie Killer.
Yeah. I'm so tempted to read that.
I downloaded it onto my iPad. There are 2 people in my office who are reading it, and we're like banding together to like watch the movie. It's a big deal.
Nice.
Yeah. I was also the only other time I was on TV. Oh, you know what? I was kind of on the radio another time. There was a really big snowstorm. Yeah. in Columbus, and my most favorite TV station of all time, CD 101. They're now 102.1 in Columbus. They whenever there's like a big event in Columbus, they'll just kind of preempt the music and just like let people call in and chat with them because they're awesome. And their studio is like all windows, and you can like walk right in, and like people like bring them stuff like cookies and food and whatever. My mom and I were like driving back from our mutual works, and we called in to tell them like, hey, like the lights out at this intersection, and they let us get on the air. It was really cool.
their local interest story of the minute.
Yeah. The only other time I was on TV was I performed in a play that
I love all your drama stories.
Drama stories. I have a lot.
Because basically, it's just like I was a drama geek, and this one time in drama camp.
One time when I did drama, we had this play called The Yellow Boat, where we.
Is it a ripoff of The Yellow Submarine?
No, it's a little different. It's about the first kid who ever got AIDS in America.
Are you sure that's not a ripoff of The Yellow Submarine?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I was the dad. I'm one of the principal characters, and I don't know how this decision got made, but a TV studio. So we performed this play in Scotland for the Fringe Festival. It's a big 2-week like thing in Edinburgh where people perform, and we were
drink beer.
Drink beer. Well, I was 17.
Not you.
So we didn't drink too much. All of the theater programs in the country compete in something called the American High School Theater Festival, and the best theater program in the country gets to, I think it's like the 10 best theater programs in the country get to go to the Fringe Festival. We were one of them.
It's okay. You can say that you were the best. None of the other teams are here.
We were the best. We were obviously the best. One of the programs performed a live theater production of I can't think of what is it called? Schoolhouse Rock show. Like they took a number of Schoolhouse Rock like things and stitched them together and just did that.
The Schoolhouse Rock show.
Yeah, and I remember the ending was like, I think they did the one like how a bill becomes a law, and then when they finished with their song, their big final ending was they pulled out glow sticks. And I don't want to brag, but we had like a pretty good show because it was about a kid who has AIDS. It was like pretty like moving. And this group was like doing Schoolhouse Rock, and they had seen our show. One of the things that we had to watch each other's shows. So they'd seen us perform, and like everyone in the crowd just like weeping. And then we go to theirs, and like we're like some of the only people there, and they're doing like, I'm just a bill, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill with glow sticks. And then what you do at the end of the show is you go, if you were part of this program, you go out to the backstage. If you're like a performer, you go to the backstage while they're like cleaning up and like packing up and whatever, and you congratulate them and you say like, hey, good job, I really enjoyed your show. And when they came to us, there was like girls with like mascara like all like down their face. Oh my
all
God,
verklempt.
so good. Right, oh my God, this is so amazing, you're so whatever, oh, I was so moved. And then we had to go back and tell them, we're like, those glow sticks were so cool.
Also, side effect, I now know how a bill becomes a law after it sings.
I knew. Because I'd seen that. So this was a very long story, and I'll wrap it up. I apologize to everyone. I got chosen to go with our director and talk about it on our NBC affiliate. And the thing I remember is that one of the anchors who was talking to us made fun of me on air.
Nice.
I did not appreciate.
Doesn't that always feel good?
I'm never doing this again.
Public humiliation.
One of the things I remember is that on that same radio affiliate, CD101, they have this guy who works for that NBC affiliate. He calls himself Dr. DVD. I saw him there. I'm like, are you Dr. DVD? Are you the guy who does the DVD reviews on CD101? He's like, yes, I am. And I'm like, I am such a huge fan of yours. You're so funny, and I love your reviews. And then after we'd recorded our thing, he found me, and he gave me like a little gift bag of like DVDs and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I just want to give you this stuff. It's like stuff that people have like given me to review. And it was really crappy. It was like Hidalgo or whatever. Like, watch, but it was. I thought it was really nice that he was like thinking about.
Here's some free crap that I can't use.
Yes. All right, next question. We got to move on. This is gonna be like this is gonna be the 3-hour podcast. What color are your bath towels, Shawn?
They're like an off-white cream color.
Mine are black and red.
Black and red. We had kind of like a theme going on in our old bathroom at our old apartment. We had a brown shower curtain and brown carpets, and then the cream-colored towels kind of blended in. But since we moved and we now have a blue bathroom and stuff, it doesn't really fit anymore. The cream is fine, but our brown carpets now look out of place, so like it ruined the entire feng shui we were going for.
In many previous places where I've lived, I've had a real bathroom with like a full bath.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have a half bath in my apartment, so it's just a shower. And I just wanted to say that I don't like that.
yeah, we're down to just a shower too, and we had to get rid of the shower curtain because it didn't work. That's one of the reasons why I don't like it. I have my old shower curtain, and it's all bunched up in there. Yeah, we're just using like the inner liner, and that's all we have. We haven't replaced it with something nice yet.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking about this. Why are we stuck on this?
Well, let's move on to Elaine.
Okay, these are superlatives.
So it's not RRQ anymore. It's just random questions.
It's just RQ.
RQ.
It's asterisk RQ.
Shawn. Yeah. Regular expression RQ. Shawn asked a question last week. We have Elaine. We have Dave. So Elaine asked in her podcast response, which we have been so superlative about, and we've loved. What a great response. I hope they continue it. She asked, what's our favorite midnight snack and why?
Well,
John?
the funniest thing is I was listening to this as it was approaching midnight, and I was just thinking I wanted a sandwich. So I think typically there are two things that I go for. If I ate an early dinner and I'm still awake that late, I will actually make a sandwich usually. I'll just throw together some lunch meat and mayo or mustard. But then my other go-to is if I'm not that hungry but I feel the need to put something in my belly, it's usually I grab a bag of pretzels and then just sit there munching them, which is probably bad and you're not supposed to do like right before you go to bed because it's unhealthy. But I do it.
My favorite midnight snack. My favorite snack from the refrigerator, period, is cold pizza.
Cold pizza? Alicia really likes cold pizza. I don't prefer it. I don't really care either way. I would probably rather heat up my pizza, but Alicia likes it cold.
I love cold. I would never warm it up.
There are certain kinds of leftover pizza that I will definitely eat cold. Like, I'll eat Hawaiian pizza cold.
I think one of the best features of pizza is that you can get it warm and hot and good, and then put it in the refrigerator and then eat it cold. That's a feature for me. I think
Carter makes his frozen pizza and then immediately puts it in the fridge. I'll eat this in an hour.
So my office is doing a Tetris tournament, and we're actually making a bracket like March Madness or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I did very poorly. I was at a colleague's house, and we were doing Tetris, and we ordered pizza, and she had to be out of town for 3 days, and she was like, everyone take the stuff that we have and like get it back to the office. and I like I snagged the leftover pizza. I was like, I'll just take this, and I just went home and put it in the refrigerator in my house and ate it. I just was like, yeah, I'm gonna take this.
Yeah, the story of pretty much every party, right?
Definitely. Final random question. This is from Dave, from Mr. David Moulton of Geek Love fame.
That's his claim now. He's stuck with that.
He wants to know what our favorite TV series is, and his is Farscape.
His favorite sci-fi TV series.
Oh, sci-fi, yeah, sci-fi TV series. His favorite is Farscape, and his rationale is that it's balls awesome.
It's balls awesome.
Well, do you have a favorite sci-fi TV series?
This popped up on my tweet deck, and I said to Alicia, I read it aloud to Alicia, and she was like, "What is yours?" And I said, "Well, my initial reaction is just to say Firefly, but that seems like my go-to. I don't want to discount anything else that I might be missing, but the thing is, like, first of all, I've never watched Farscape ever. And then just about every other sci-fi series that I'm even interested in, like, I've watched it and I've been like, this is a very good series that I would love to indulge in and watch all seasons and stuff. And I'm talking about, like, X-Files. I'm talking about The Next Generation. I'm talking about Battlestar Galactica, which I never finished. Like, all of these series I've never watched the whole thing. I have no real context of them. I know characters. I know instances of things that happen. But other than Firefly, I have, like, no real good knowledge of any science fiction series. And we mentioned Dollhouse earlier, and I would say that is a science fiction series. But again, I never finished it, and I also didn't really think it was that great.
So what you're saying is that you're a geek, but you have no geek cred.
That might be what I'm saying.
You've never actually watched these things.
I'm invested in Star Wars. I know tons about that universe, but the Star Trek universe, I'm very ignorant of.
So I'm a pretty big geek. I've watched most of The Next Generation. I think it's fine. As I've gotten older, and by as I've gotten older, I mean as I have stopped being a teenager, I have grown to like and appreciate the original series a lot more. I thought it sucked when I was a kid, and now in a lot of ways, I think it is much better than The Next Generation.
Really?
I do.
I don't think I've seen more than 2 episodes of the original Star Trek.
When you think about its historical context, I think you gain appreciation for it. It's kind of like Buffy, the way that they take the issues of the day and turn them into something fantastical.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also have, like, Blue Women and Jim Kirk, like, you know, punching lizard people, which is pretty cool.
Right. And triples.
Only in one episode.
Of course, that's one of the ones I've seen.
Great episode. I really like of the Star Trek universe. I think I'll get hate for this. I think the obvious answer for the best series is Deep Space Nine.
I knew you'd say that because we've had little conversations about it before. I think my dad watched some of Deep Space Nine, but I don't think he was ever invested in it the way it seemed like he watched Next Generation, and he can confirm or deny.
So Next Generation, like, kind of grabs you with the characters, and you're invested with, like, Jean-Luc Picard and Riker.
I remember when I was watching, like, I watched it when it was originally airing, so I was kind of too young to really understand it, which is why I have this sense that it's a good show, but I don't know a lot about it. And I think I felt like when I was watching it, it kind of felt to me like my dad's version of my mom's soap operas.
I think that that's a very good way to describe it. Like, what I would say is 2 things. One, they built up characters that you're invested in and you want to follow, and that's why you watch The Next Generation.
Right.
It is not about the grand arc.
It's not the final frontier.
The series. Oh man, The Final Frontier is one of my most favorite movies of all time.
Oh jeez.
It's not. It's the. I think the. Oh, not Final Frontier. What am I thinking of? What's Star Wars 6?
Star Wars 6?
Not
Star
Wars,
Trek 6?
Star Trek 6. What's the
I don't know. You are asking the wrong person. Is it the one with the whale?
No, but that's a good one. It's the
Undiscovered Country?
The Undiscovered Country. That is my favorite Star Trek movie of all time.
Kirk and McCoy are charged with assassinating the Klingon High Chancellor and imprisoned.
It is amazing.
I'm about to. Okay, you thought people were going to be mad at you. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yeah.
I've never seen Wrath of Khan.
What?
But I know the entire story.
You have to see it.
I know I do. I do.
No. It's on iTunes.
Isn't that horrible, though?
Will you commit to watching it?
Yeah.
By what time?
I can watch it by next week.
Shawn, okay. Let's say this. I'm cashing checks I can't. Or I'm whatever.
You're writing
that
checks
phrase is.
that you
Writing
can't
checks
cash.
I can't cash. I am opening up the iTunes store right now. I'm checking that the Wrath of Khan is in the iTunes store, and I don't know how you spell Khan.
Kahn. Isn't it?
That's what I typed in. I don't think that's right. I think it's the other way. Khn. Yes, it is. It is in the iTunes store. I will download it. Shawn will download it. We'll talk about it next week.
We are totally missing the point of this question. I've said what my favorite sci-fi series is by like default. It's Firefly. What is your favorite sci-fi series?
Babylon 5.
Okay.
Because
it's balls awesome.
For any number of reasons. I wish that more showrunners had the balls that J. Michael Straczynski had to say, this will be a 5-season show. I will tell my story. This is the story. And then it will be done.
Yeah.
I will not extend it further, although he was pressured to, and he did, and the things that he did afterwards sucked. Were really bad.
Ouch.
And he also, unfortunately, had to compress parts of the timeline. Something that's really, really sad about Babylon 5 is that JMS, as the fans affectionately refer to him as, J. Michael Straczynski, he had a 5-year, 5-season plan. He thought at the end of season 3 that he would only get 4 years and had to compress a lot of the timeline, and then he ended up getting that 5th year. And I think a lot of people think that 5th season is really weak because he kind of blew it all in the 4th season and
Gotcha.
the movie that followed the 4th season. If you've not seen Babylon 5, I will say this: the first season kind of blows, and I think the team recognized that and they made some changes. And when you get to the 2nd season, you're like, oh wow, this is really good. And by the time you get to the 3rd season, you're like, oh, this is awesome. And if you think that Shawn and I might continue our project of talking about seasons of shows beyond Buffy, you're probably right to think that Babylon 5 might show up eventually in that lineup.
I'd be fine with that.
I love it. Because I love it so much.
And I'm completely uninitiated.
And one of those seasons, I'm just going to say, is, I think, one of the best things that's ever been put out on TV. I'll just say that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're not pulling your punches.
Too. No, I like Farscape too. Farscape's pretty great. It's on Netflix, if anyone wants to watch it. It's pretty great. And Crichton, Michael Crichton, the guy, the main
Jurassic
character.
Park?
What? Maybe not my parent. Yeah, the main character from Farscape also ends up, and the chick that he ends up, the peacekeeper chick that he ends up being all lovey-dovey with. They end up on the Stargate series that ended up on. Yeah, on SCHP. I don't call it sci-fi anymore. They've abandoned their principles. I hate them. Well, we're done with random question time. We're on to the main topic, which will probably be short.
Yeah, because it's going to be the third time we've talked about it.
I'm done with talking about this.
We've made our own trilogy out of this.
Yeah. Oh, Shawn, you're so clever. So BioWare made this game called Mass Effect 3, and people are really upset about it.
We outlined why we feel the way we do. I thought we were pretty succinct.
Yeah, that was one of the few times when I think we've been succinct. And I think that the reasons that we've outlined for why we don't like what happened, I think that those still stand. I don't think... What I really, really wanted to bring up is that a couple people, specifically Bodman, were really pushing back on what we said. And they're like, no, you don't understand. BioWare has really, really been like... they've been writing checks that they can't cash. They have been like... what they think is that they have been telegraphing that like the series is gonna, it's all about choice and consequence, and what I have learned that I didn't know last week when we were originally talking about this, what I've learned is that one of the main reasons people are upset about the endings of Mass Effect 3 is that it doesn't seem like any of the choices you've ever made matter. And that the fans think that they should have mattered. And they are now righteously indignant and are writing letters and emails and attacking BioWare, and BioWare has caved.
They said that there are 16 endings to the game in total, but the problem is that they're not really that different from each other. And ultimately, the most important thing about the entire like universe that you're in does not change throughout any of the endings. It's all the same no matter what.
So there's a lot of different ways to attack this problem. Shawn and I might attack it in several different ways. The first way I want to attack this is pretty practical. So, fans, Bodman, et al. Either BioWare gave you a crappy product, and they knew it was crappy, and they put it out there anyway, right? And you're just calling them on it.
See Duke Nukem Forever.
Right. Or they had a product that they liked, they thought was good, and they put it out there. So, fans, if they put out a crappy... If BioWare put out a crappy product and they're acknowledging it, that should be more troubling to you than the ending. If they were content with putting out something bad, that means more than, oh, well, we wanted a different ending. And I don't think that BioWare and their developers did that. I don't think that they're like, yeah, you called us. We put out this really crappy product.
We didn't think you'd notice.
We didn't think you'd notice. We put out this really crappy product. Oh, sorry, guys. I don't think that's what they did. So what's the other option? The other option is they put out a product that they thought was good. And you're telling them you don't like it. You are criticizing their product. The thing, and they thought it was good. They were like, yeah, guys, high five. Great job. We are not going to put out crap products. We're putting this out. It's good. We like it. And now they're saying, oh, man, all these people are upset. well, let's change it. Even though we thought it was good, even though we thought we liked it, let's change it because the fans are upset for some reason.
For the first like 2 weeks, the company, their official stance was, look at the reviews, we don't see a problem.
This is the biggest problem, I think, is that BioWare is in some way caving to fan pressure, and I don't think anyone thinks it's because they're correcting a problem, right?
Not a problem with the game.
Not a problem with the game. Like, if when you got to the end, the game crashed, and everyone was like, dude, the game crashes when you get to the end. And BioWare was like, oh, yeah, that's a big problem.
We didn't tell you our game ends with a kill screen.
Right. If that was the problem, and then they pushed out, like, a release that, like, fixed that, that's one thing. It's totally different to be like, hey, we don't like the ending, change it. Separate from the whole, like, BioWare is publishing something that they don't have faith in versus, you know, we don't like it and BioWare is caving. I want to make this clear. I am not trying to be mean, but I think it is childlike, not childish, but childlike for gamers to, regardless of the amount of time or effort that they put into a bunch of games, to think that they have ownership over it. I think that we might get dislikes on this. I'm sorry. And Shawn can say, no, I disagree with Carter. I think
Carter's so dumb.
He's so dumb. I think that it is not reasonable.
It seems like they feel the company is obligated to fulfill some intangible idea of a game that they feel entitled to.
Yes, it's that feeling of entitlement that I am against. And what the Jeremy Johns video that Bodman helpfully gave us, like, I mentioned this to Shawn when we were talking about this. I actually really, Bodman, thank you for explaining, like, where a lot of the fans are coming from. Like, that was something that I didn't know. I know a lot more about now from you and from the videos you posted. That was very helpful. Thank you. After digesting that, I still feel like the people who feel that way have this entitlement that is not appropriate, and that I would.
Did what was his name? Johns?
Jeremy Johns?
Jeremy Johns. Did he, in his video, did he specifically talk about, like, them changing the ending? Like, did he gave ways for them to change the ending?
No, he did not call for a change.
Because I was comfortable with watching his video because he was just upset. It felt like before I even played Minecraft, I read X's big essay about why he was giving up on Minecraft. And at no point was he like, I'm going to sue the company if they don't make these changes. He was like, here are all the things that I was kind of expecting for the direction of the game, and they didn't happen, and I'm sad. And that's the way that John's video felt to me. Like, he was disappointed and giving all of his opinions on the ways they could have made it better.
I'm hesitant to offer criticism about the fan reaction to Mass Effect 3 because I haven't played it. The one and only thing I would say on that front is the creator, the person who wrote this, the author, we're going to talk about this, they wanted to have some definite ending. And the thing I'm thinking, I'm flashing back to 9th grade. I'm flashing back to 9th grade in my language arts class when we were talking about Greek heroes. And these Greek heroes think that they have all this choice and that they can go off and they can do what they want. And at the end of the day, they get pulled back and, you know, they kill their father and they rape
Sleep
their mother.
with their mother.
You're Odysseus or
Oedipus.
who's that? Oedipus. Yeah, you're Oedipus. Like that would like my teacher drew like a dot with a circle around it on the whiteboard, and it's like you're trying to get out of the circle and you get drawn back into the circle, and it's not just Oedipus, it's everyone. Like if this was the author with quotation marks around it, the author's intention that you would have all of this choice, but then at the end of the day, fate makes you limited to these couple choices.
Mm-hmm.
If that was their intention and they wanted that the whole time, and I'm not saying that they did, then like, well, whatever. You're all righteously indignant that you had all these choices before, but like this is what the author wanted to do, and you can be upset about it. That's fine, but I think that is a perspective that has not been articulated and explored. Like everyone has said, like we've had all these choices and all these options, and then we get to the end, and then we don't have any, and it's like, yeah, but what if that's what they wanted to do?
Right. I remember when I saw Terminator 3, and first of all, let's not even go into how it's not Terminator 2. But the entire movie you spend like running away from Skynet. They're like, we delayed it, but it's clearly still coming. It's going to be here, and they're trying to figure out ways to stop it. And at the end, they walk right into the bunker that is going to make sure that they survive the launch of Skynet. Like there was never any way to avoid it. It was going to happen. And no matter how many ways they tried to avoid it, they ended up walking right into fate. It happened.
That was the most interesting thing about Terminator 3 was that...
It was. That's why I brought it up.
Regardless of what happened in Terminator 2, fate made it that Skynet will still be able to come about. So I think that if the players are... I don't think that they're thinking about that. Like, what if this was just the way it was supposed to be? What if the authors, what if BioWare is saying, like, we're giving you this story of choice and option, and at the end of the day, we're telling you that choice and option happens in your life, but sometimes fate happens. It's the Jeff Goldblum moment in Jurassic Park.
Mm-hmm.
Life finds a way. Like, there will, like, regardless of what you do, whether you're a good person or a bad person, this is what is going to happen to you.
It's the nature of causality. It's like we're tied to the Big Bang and every event that's followed it.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing is that, and this may be more legitimate, and Bodman brought this up, and other people brought this up, is that the Mass Effect universe seems to give you options for playing good. Like, if you play good, good things happen to the universe, right? And if you play good the entire time, you still get the same endings in Mass Effect 3. And those endings aren't great. You die in all of them. And, regardless of your choice, it's not super awesome for the universe. Like, people are stranded in, at Earth, or Earth gets incinerated. It's like, it's not great. And a common refrain I've seen is that if I play good the whole time, I should get a good ending. I think that's sort of different from, I should have some control over the ending. It's just like, I think that you've given me the expectation that,
right.
Like, over years, like, I've been playing good in these games, and then you screwed me. Is that a legitimate reason to complain to BioWare and say, like, hey, all of the endings don't seem really great to me. It seems like bad. I've played good this whole time. Can I get a good ending? So is that fair?
I think if I had played this and experienced this firsthand, I would have, and I can't do this now and like experience it with an empty brain. But I would like to think that when I got to the end, if I were disappointed with the end because I didn't feel like it was reflecting what I had done during the games, I would still have the knowledge that I enjoyed the mechanics of like the reason those things are in the game are to draw you into the story, and I would probably feel like they really did a good job of engaging me with those gameplay mechanics. And just because I was upset with the ending does not make me enjoy playing the game any less before I got to the ending.
I think that's totally right. I think that's the way to think about it. The big problem that I have, well, I have two big problems with this response. One is if I'll try to like sum this up quickly. It's if BioWare caves to this, will Valve cave to pressure over the how Half-Life 3 gets
if Gabe Newell has not caved by this point, I don't think he's going to. Not for fan pressure. No way.
Well, but the thing is,
that
like,
guy would stand looking at those people camped out in protest and just like stare at them in that scary Gabe Newell stare.
Sure. I mean, Gabe Newell is quite a character and a beast. But like, if there's evidence that other people can point to, like, well, BioWare changed something because of something, why won't you? You know, it's like I don't like the precedent that this sets.
It's an ugly precedent.
It is. It's ugly. I recognize everyone's frustration. I recognize everyone's anger over this. Like, I'm not saying like it's not bad, but it's like we don't want this to be like a legitimate means of changing games. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Let's just end it.
We needed to address final things. We appreciate all the people who have contacted us to try and make us see it their way, because we totally do. We understand why you're so pained after spending, who knows, like 100 hours on this trilogy, that you're not getting the ending that you hoped. But we're going to say that that's just kind of the way it is.
I mean, if you didn't like the ending of Harry Potter, you shouldn't be entitled to get a different ending to Harry Potter.
I just want to point out, I want to point at George Lucas again and move on.
Yeah, George Lucas. Bad stuff. Let's talk about Marble Hornets and the second season!
We are watching the second season, and I'll spill the beans right now. I spent about a 36-hour period earlier this week catching up on the entirety of Marble Hornets. So at this point, I am the whole way caught up.
So now we both know everything.
by which we mean we know nothing.
We know nothing. You can watch this whole thing, and you're still just like, well, I don't know what's going on.
I really thought that by the time I caught up, there would be a few less things I was questioning, and no, I'm just as confused.
I think the only thing that you learn throughout the series is about Jay. You know more about Jay.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, not really.
Yeah, definitely.
So we watched entries 27 through 33, although Shawn obviously watched more than that.
But we'll confine the discussion.
Basically, these entries represent Jay in a hotel up until he gets access to some footage that informs him about what he's been doing over the past 7 months. So he has a memory gap. It's about 7 months.
He hasn't posted anything to YouTube in that time.
And these videos are all about what happens after that, and then at the very end he gets the videos, and then he's going to watch them, and that'll be homework for
next time.
What'd you think?
First of all, there is a definite quality upgrade. First of all, they're full frame. Like, up until this point, we've been dealing with those little windowed videos for some reason, which I never really understood. But we're in full frame, we're in HD, and I feel like there's a lot more consistency. We watched seven entries, and I feel like each part is equally weighty.
Since you've also seen the whole series now, I think we can. We probably would have said this later. I think we can say this now. These videos make more holistic sense, I think, with the later videos.
Yep.
Than in the first season. I think that they struggled to like make everything make sense. And this season, that's true.
As since I caught up, I started looking at the wiki and started looking at specific details. And there were things that like they did in the first season that even now they haven't been explained or answered, which could mean that they were plot points that were abandoned, which makes them red herrings.
Oh, I think that's totally true. I think that so Shawn and I are caught up on the whole thing. I think that they're focusing on certain areas.
I would assume that they did what a lot of web series like this do. They studied what the fans reacted to specifically, and then refined that stuff.
And that is clearly Tim.
I mean, there's no mystery that the guy who's playing Tim is definitely playing the masked man. They're the same person. Whether or not they are the same character or not, even it seems very unclear, and it seems like I don't have a solid answer. I don't have solid ground to stand on.
Tim is masky. That's the fan term for him, masky.
Yeah.
Tim's masky. We don't know.
He is and he isn't.
If Tim knows that he's masky.
Definitely.
Right, that's a big plot point. Oh, well, I'll just say that Masky does not show up until the very end of our homework for this week. We get the opening. The opening was fantastic, I thought. It's just a black shot, and you hear like an alarm going, and then I don't know how they did this, but there's like a CRT TV going, and it's like it's making this noise like it's broken kind of, and it made this like repeating noise, and it's Jay. He's in some hotel room. He gets up. He's turns off the alarm, turns off the TV, turns on the camera, and then he's like, we start getting title cards like, I don't know where I am.
This is not familiar. He looks out the window, not somewhere he recognizes.
Also, last week, Shawn, you said, wouldn't it just be awesome if one of these characters had a camera attached to them?
I seriously had no idea that was about to happen.
And it took all of my might not to spoil it. That in season 2 they wear cameras.
Like very first shot.
Very first shot. And it's like I think that it made sense that they sort of read you're the every viewer and they read your mind.
I really was. Like, I was screaming the same thing that everyone was screaming.
Like, just wear a camera! And then they started wearing a camera. So Jay is wearing some sort of camera apparatus, which is just so awesome.
It is. It's like a little harness that straps across his chest.
It's so cool. I've never even seen one of those in real life, so I'm wondering if that's a real thing or if they made it.
I don't know. I didn't recognize it either. I've never seen something like that.
Either. So it's been 7 months. Jay has no idea what's going on. He's in a hotel. He's wearing a camera. He's got a security kind of camera watching him. And we also have title cards, like we always do, because Jay is awkward as hell.
I told my wife, as I've been watching this, I was trying to interpret the title cards as the filmmakers speaking to us, and then I realized as I was watching these, I have to stop assuming that, because it's not the filmmakers, it's a character in the film. Like, yes. It would be the equivalent of me watching a horror film and going like, don't go in that room, he's in that room, and I can't, the character can't hear me. I'm watching him make a mistake, and I'm reacting to it like it's a mistake of the production, but it's not. It is a character flaw.
Yes.
That he's making an assumption here where I wouldn't, or he's like reading into something and jumping to a conclusion that he shouldn't.
Exactly. The title cards they're Jay.
They're a way into his mind.
Talking. They're Jay talking to us, and they're Jay talking to us because he does not, I think it's really clear, he does not like talking to the camera. He's awkward.
Whenever he has to do it, he's really quiet and doesn't look at the lens, just kind of like has it pointed at his face.
Jay is a very interesting guy. I sent Shawn a video of the guy who plays Jay, which totally ruined the whole thing for Shawn.
If you're okay with seeing these guys out of character, in the link dump of this video on YouTube, I'll include a link to the guy who plays him, named Troy, doing a hilarious comedy bit of him shaving his face in a mirror. It is hysterical, but it's the first time I've seen him out of the Jay character, and it was kind of a like, oh, he's just a real person.
The reason why, one of the big reasons why I sent that to Shawn was to like emphasize the fact that he's really playing a character here.
Totally.
And Jay and the guy who plays him, they're very different people. Very, very different people. So, like, Jay as a character is so painfully awkward. And does not work well with people. And that makes his interactions with Jessica, a new character that we get introduced, really super awkward. Super, super weird. But they're also really important because we start to learn more about them. So what do you think about Jessica, the character Jessica who lives next door to her?
I was refreshed, first of all, to see an actor in the series who I felt was doing a really good job of acting. Not because they've had the worst actors, but every so often I've felt like there's an awkward moment. I felt like Jessica did her part really well. She convinced me. I believed everything she was saying and acting.
I totally agreed. I thought she did great. At the end of the second entry, Jay says, like, "Oh, I think I hear something coming from the other
strange
room."
noises, something going bump in the night.
The thing that I thought, like, listening to it closely was, I mean, I think it really sounds like she's banging her head on the wall.
Which is a terrifying image.
Oh, God. I mean, thinking about it is almost worse than seeing it, you know?
I think this show accomplishes a lot of effects that way.
Oh, that's really true. That's one of the high points of this series, is that it can put stuff in your mind that
is worse than what you'd see.
Right. Well, in entry 29, we get the stuff that, you know, you don't want to see. Entry 29 is some footage on Jay's hard drive. So clearly this is in the past. He hasn't filmed this. It's very short, and it's in some sort of like tunnel. Mm-hmm. There's blood, obviously, on the ground and on a rock, and there is heavy distortion, which makes us think of the Slender Man who appears at the end, or the operator. We've never seen this place before. We don't know anything about it. This is pretty frickin' creepy.
I found that the locations that they used for season 2 they seemed better suited for what they were doing, and they found locations that were distinctly creepy.
Oh, so creepy. So creepy. So creepy.
Good scouting on this project.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Jay returns to that park. We have one of these episodes, 31, where you're kind of creeped out the whole time, and then it's a total fake out. Jay is walking through that park, the park where he thinks that this stuff happened,
Yeah.
Rosswood Park, and there's a guy there, and he thinks that guy is like following him.
Well, he is following him, but
Well,
it's just kind of a coincidence, it would seem.
Yeah, and then, like Jay like comes up to him, and he like taps on his shoulder, like, "Hey, what's going on?" And
that's the point, like, that you're expecting him to turn around and like all of a sudden like have a vampire face or something.
And the guy's just like, "Hey, what's going on?" And Jay's like, "Oh."
He's listening to Steppenwolf on his iPod.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, sorry about that." And then Jay in the title card even says that I'm getting paranoid.
He feels it. He just feels this anxiety.
Right, like that guy was not following him. That guy was not doing anything, but Jay thinks he was. One final Marble Hornets, 33. Jay and Jessica, they are talking to one another, and they're saying like, "Hey," Jessica like says like, "Hey, Jay, you're being ridiculous. I know that you and I know one another. I know that crazy things are happening to us. We need to figure this out." And Jay says, "I agree.
I'll tell you everything.
I'll tell you what's going on. Just like give me a second." He wants to like push this video.
Yeah, he knows that he needs to get this footage to us. Because he's planning to go. He realizes that he needs to hit the road and get on the run, and this might be his last footage for a while. Nice of him to think about us.
He says that. Yes, thank you, Jay. He says that I need to push this video to YouTube.
That's not what he says. He's just like, I need 10 minutes.
I need a couple minutes.
And then he says something that I've started to pay attention to a lot. He says, "Don't close your door."
Yes, he does.
I've started paying attention to doors because of all this like teleporting that we've seen happen. It seems directly related to closing doors. And after I read a wiki entry on one of Alex's videos from season 1, he always left his door open when he was sleeping. And I think there was a reason he was leaving his door open. I think he figured something out about being teleported, and doors have a lot to do with it. Don't close your door.
Well, I will say this. It will come up in next week's Marble Hornets. I think she left her door open, but Jay's door somehow got closed.
Yes.
And then bad things happened. All right. So, we've got some Marble Hornets for you for next week. I'll send it to Shawn. I'm not sure if there are To the Arc videos.
I've started finding that they seem to have less and less to do with the main plot and more to do just with supplemental material.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not really essential to your understanding of what's going on.
We're not critical, but we'll get all that to Shawn, and
we'll pee our pants over it next week.
Oh boy. Get some.